What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Atlantic Files, the #1 podcast on the #1 division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. Joined by your hosts, myself, Alex Fishbein. We got Dennis Clausen, and today we got Brady from the Tap That Podcast. What's going on, guys?
I thought that was Mike. I thought that was a much better looking version of Mike.
Good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And this
God,
time...
look at that. Sorry to interrupt. That beard that my man's got. Look at that.
I know.
Comes and goes, man. It's getting a little warm for it right now, though.
We bring on a guy with a huge beard the moment I shave mine.
All right. Mine's still looking good.
I mean, yours always looks good, Dennis.
And look at, hair's on point as usual.
Did you get another haircut or
Friday? I go 10.
Okay.
Do 10 days.
Okay.
But the problem is usually what happens is the beard, the hair maybe I could stretch it out to 2 weeks, but the beard starts to get really sloppy. So I just kind of consolidate because I'm not going to make 2 separate trips to the barber shop.
I mean, you could.
I don't want to.
Fair enough. But this time we actually have a Memphis Grizzlies fan in Brady down here. We very rarely have anybody non-Eastern Conference, let alone anything Memphis. So it should be interesting. We'll definitely talk some Memphis. We'll talk some Atlantic here.
He's a hillbilly. You're a hillbilly too, right? You're Kentucky. So...
Yeah, it spreads all over. Like where I'm at in Lexington, going to school in Kentucky, I get like Pacers coverage, I get Grizzlies coverage. So the Pacers are like my Eastern Conference team, but my loyalty has really gone more de facto Grizzlies over the last few years, and it's really paying off big time this year.
Okay.
And how many bowls have you smoked today, Brady? That's a joke.
How many bowls have you smoked, Dennis?
I don't even know.
Can't even answer your own question.
If I smoked weed, I wouldn't even be on this show right now. I wouldn't be able to handle that. And do I look like the kind of guy who needs to eat anymore?
I mean, I'm not saying you need to, but
yeah,
it is what it is at this point, All right, but anyway, I'm also glad you said Pacers because TJ McConnell's the man. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, TJ McConnell, one of the great UDFA steals in NBA history, bar none. I actually wrote an article for Roto Bowler a few years ago about all the UDFAs that had, like, fantasy potential as rookies, and TJ McConnell was, like, top of the list that year.
Oh, yeah. I still have him on my Dynasty fantasy team.
Bang for your buck, you can't beat it.
Exactly. He was my starting point guard, not this past season, but the season before, so. But
I hope he wasn't starting for you this last season.
I mean, he could have, because I was tanking this year anyway, so. But either way, let's get into it. We'll start off with East, and then we'll work our way to West and get to Memphis and everything, so... Obviously, one of the big things in the news. So, Joel Embiid broke his face. Pascal Siakam's elbow to the face gave him the orbital fracture, the same kind of fracture, except I think it's the opposite side that he had a few years ago when he ran into Markelle Fultz's shoulder. Coincidentally enough, he returned in the playoffs that year against the Miami Heat. So now they're facing the Miami Heat again. Game 1, first half, wasn't too terrible as the Sixers were up by a point at halftime. And then it all went downhill from there and the Sixers got blown out. So, do you guys fault Doc Rivers for playing Embiid that late? And do you think that the Sixers have any sort of chance in this series or any sort of chance to win at least one game until Embiid comes back? We'll start with you, Dennis.
Oh, well, I was going to let our guest go first, but okay. I'll go. So the first thing that we need to discuss is why the fuck was Joel Embiid playing when the team is up by 29 and what was there, 4 minutes left?
About that, yeah.
And then Doc's only comeback was, well, they were playing their guys. Yeah, no shit they're playing their guys because they still think they have a chance to win, even though they don't. But both of the coaches were dumb for having their starting lineups in. I mean, injuries could still happen, as you could see. What happens if Pascal Siakam tears an ACL with 4 minutes left in a meaningless fourth quarter? Like, nothing's going to happen. So, yeah, both of those guys are stupid, but Doc Rivers is a guy who's even more dumb for keeping Embiid in the lineup that long. Now, I think that the issue is I probably would guess that Embiid, once he clears concussion protocol, that he will be in the lineup and he'll be back with the face mask again. So I could see that definitely happening. So this may be the last game where Embiid is not playing, but I could see him coming back. How effective will he be? On top of that, he's getting over a concussion. His vision may be restricted with the face mask, and he still has that thumb injury that now really nobody's ever talking about. So he's going to have surgery on that in the offseason. So he's getting banged up pretty good right now.
I mean, so if we're talking about the fault of Doc, then yeah, of course, hindsight's 20/20, but hindsight's I don't know what better vision is than 20/20. I know that there's a measurement better, but of course, looking back, it seems pretty silly to have the guy in the game that's, the outcome is not in question, and now he's hurt. Now you're facing, looking at a deficit going into this series. Obviously, you look at that, and that's a huge mistake that could really affect their postseason prospects. Now, if the question is, can the Sixers pull off at least one win before Embiid comes back? Sure. I definitely see a scenario in which the Sixers can get a win before Embiid comes back. That's the nature of the NBA playoffs. The Heat are a very well-rounded team. But they don't have, an X factor probably quite as strong as James Harden, no matter where you see it in the lineup. So, yeah, of course they can get a win, but unfortunately they're going to have to do it now without Joel Embiid. That's way tougher than they were planning on having any game this, for this postseason. So it's really unfortunate that they're going to have to deal with that. But yeah, they can win a game, and really that's all they're going to need before he gets back to have a chance to come out victorious in this series.
So the only way, though, that I see, I could see Embiid coming back in Game 3. So here's another Dennis prediction. So I could see Embiid coming back Game 3. However, in order for the Sixers to have a chance, right, James Harden, I mean, what the fuck was that in Game 1? I mean, you would have hoped, right, that without Embiid in the lineup that there would be some resurrection of the James Harden of old. Instead, he's still doing this stuff. Instead of taking the offense into his hands, he's trying to be the facilitator. He's trying to get other guys. Okay, great. But James Harden was his best version when he was the guy playing ISO. Now, can he do that anymore, especially in today's NBA with the rules and stuff structured the way they are? I don't know, but he's not a horrible player. He just needs to get his act together. So, hey, stay out of the strip clubs and start shooting, for fuck's sake.
But it's one of those situations where it's this is what you get time and time again, year after year, for tethering your championship hopes to a player like James Harden. When it comes down to him being the only guy, the efficiency is just not there to get it done over a 7-game series. It's just, who do you really blame in that situation? It seems to me like I would blame any organization that would choose to invest that amount of money in James Harden to get it done in this scenario.
Well, they had no choice because they ran Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia.
Well, so that was also that's another situation that they probably shouldn't have got themselves in. I would say.
I mean, he hasn't played for Brooklyn yet either.
He's got a bad back.
So you can't even say it seriously.
And then here's it's nice to see Tobias Harris step up in game one, but where the hell was Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah, Maxey was pretty bad in the 2 losses against Toronto, and then he was really bad last night. But I mean, the entire team couldn't hit a shot to save their lives last night either.
Paul Reed wasn't bad.
Paul Reed was good, and I kept saying play Paul. You're going to make me get on this whole rant because DeAndre Jordan is fucking garbage.
How did you feel when you saw DeAndre Jordan check into the game?
I was pissed. He started. We watched a game in 2022 where DeAndre Jordan started a playoff game, which is insane to me. I would have started Charles Bassey before him, let alone Paul Reed.
I would have started Paul Millsap in the lineup over DeAndre Jordan.
I would have too, but I mean, he did come in a little bit in that game and was also terrible, but less terrible than DeAndre Jordan.
Well, then they did this thing where they were playing small and they had Tobias Harris playing center or playing big at least for a while. So,
and it kind of worked a little.
They when they had that lineup, they came back and were actually looking like they could actually win this game.
Yeah.
But
if I remember correctly, Tobias Harris and DeAndre Jordan both ended up being minus 22 in the plus-minus. However, Tobias Harris played about 36, 37 minutes, and DeAndre Jordan played 17. So in the 17 minutes on the floor, DeAndre Jordan was a minus 22. And there was even... Hold on. I have to
And I'm surprised DeAndre Jordan didn't fucking tear an ACL playing that much.
Exactly. And so the Sixers, with DeAndre Jordan off the court, had a 103 offensive rating, 91 defensive rating, plus 11.6 net. DeAndre Jordan on the court, which is only 17 minutes, 90.6 offensive rating, 159.4 defensive rating, a negative 68.8 net rating.
You don't even have to know numbers to know from the sound of those that they're bad.
Exactly. That was some all-time level bad from DeAndre Jordan. And Doc Rivers had the nerve to say in the press conference, we like DeAndre and we're going to keep starting him whether you like it or not.
I mean, for one, that's his boy from when they were in LA together.
I mean,
you know, that's his boy. And then two, obviously you can't really trust what Doc Rivers said because here's Doc Rivers playing Joel Embiid with 4 minutes left when you're up by 29. Also, he was quoted in saying, we're going to run the offense through James Harden, which obviously that didn't work either. So maybe the Lakers will take him.
I'd be fine with that. Take him off our hands. As long as the only thing that's annoying is now the rumors of the Sixers are just trying to get Mike D'Antoni. We don't need to run the D'Antoni whole thing back again.
Absolutely.
That doesn't have to happen.
They can go to the Western Conference Finals a couple times.
I mean, a while back, yeah, with prime James Harden. I'll give him that.
Yeah, maybe DeAndre Jordan will sign somewhere else, and then he'll back out on that once he gets cornered in someone's house for a few days again.
I completely forgot that even happened.
It bugs me to this day, man. That whole Clippers thing was I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that situation. Man, why are you trying to do this on your own? You can't do this on your own. Come back to LA. We're going to the Western Conference semifinals every other year.
We're going to notoriously underachieve.
Well, you got to think, too, when you look at Texas, right? There's snakes, there's spiders, there's all these things. And once he probably found out about that, he's like, I'm out of here.
Fair enough.
He's like, we're talking about the same place the Alamo is? Nah, I'm going to stay in California.
Yeah, I'm out.
But no, like Brady said, hindsight is definitely 2020 in terms of the Doc Rivers playing Embiid thing. If he made it through that time without getting hurt, nobody would even care about it. I do agree that they probably should have been sitting. But at the same time,
there's no shit about it.
No, but at the same time, when you're when you're a player destroying the other team at their stadium and their fans have been saying fuck Embiid the entire time, you want your little victory lap.
Okay,
You
but
know?
they get their victory lap by winning the series. And as a coach, you got to protect your players. You got to protect their egos. You got to pull them out in these situations because you know these guys won't stop playing. It's his job as a coach to get them out of there.
I mean, that is true.
But it's also a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing in the modern NBA, where any amount you pull back or a starter isn't playing, people are going to say it's too soft and indicative of the modern NBA. That doesn't excuse the decision. But it does say that in hindsight, had he done something different, I'm sure there'd be some percentage of people that would have some sort of complaint about it.
Okay.
I mean,
enough.
I'm not saying it's right, Dennis. I'm just saying that there would be people that would say that.
Enough, Eddie.
Exactly. I'm not saying it's the right decision either. I'm just saying he probably would have gotten ripped. Like, say he takes Embiid and everybody out, and the Raptors started creeping slowly back in the game. You know how many of those memes of Doc Rivers blowing leads that there would have been, even if they still won, but only won by like 10. Like,
okay, but no, they would have won the series.
No, I know, but I'm just saying Doc Rivers was going to get ripped either way.
They had nothing to worry about, though. They got Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan on the bench.
You got to have a short memory in today's NBA. If you're living meme to meme, your decision making is not going to be on par. You know, you got to be able to grin and bear through those memes and just remember that tomorrow there will be another one about somebody else.
That's the thing. I don't think Doc Rivers has the mental capacity to do that. Because, like, that press conference, when they were grilling him about his choked leads, and he was like, I want you to go back and look at that Magic team that I took. I want you to go back and see the other seeds that these teams were. Like, you guys would give me credit. You would say I coached my ass off. I'm like, whoa, you're being a little defensive there. Just let it go.
Yeah, now you said grilling. I want a hamburger.
I still got to put my grill together. I just got it.
Get your shit together.
Look, man, I don't like putting stuff
It's grilling
together.
season. It's grilling season.
That's why I never buy things from IKEA either, because I don't want to put shit together.
I just put a dog cage together for my dog.
We don't do those either because our dog has broken 3 of them.
Yeah,
Metal.
for some reason, I don't know how this is happening, but he managed to escape. So I had to like reinforce part of it.
Okay.
So anybody who says dogs are dumb, they're not really that dumb. They're just not as smart as cats.
True. Hey.
Different goals and motives.
Yeah, exactly. Tyler's here. There he is. Free Paul Reed. We agree. We completely agree. So,
like, what's a cat's motive though?
Just whatever is best for them.
Yeah, to be an asshole, literally.
Literally, they just want to get out of the cage just so they can say, fuck you, I got out of the cage.
What's a cat in a cage, man? You're asking for some sort of retribution once they get out.
I'm saying...
No wonder cats hate you.
I'm saying hypothetically, if you put a cat in the cage, which cats don't need to go in a cage because they can behave themselves when they're home by themselves.
Sure.
Dogs, they want to get out of the cage because they think they're going to try to find their owner because they can't do anything but follow their owners around.
I mean, the thing is,
maybe they are stupid.
Cats are just assholes because they're the ones that sit on the ledge and just like knock shit off, and they're just like, "Yep, go get it." But anyway,
stick its middle claw up.
Yeah, exactly. I do think the Sixers can definitely pull off a win without Embiid, especially because last night the Heat didn't look good until like the very end of the third quarter. They finally started shooting better. Strus couldn't shoot. Lowry not being there is a big hole in their defense. Bam Adebayo had a good game though, and Tyler Hero obviously went off. But the Sixers, the Sixers didn't even attack Tyler Hero when the last time they played. They literally just abused that mismatch every time. They just attacked Tyler Hero over and over and over again. And this game, they were just kind of, it didn't really happen. And I mean, Harden only attempted 4 shots in the second half. So, yeah, that was a recipe for disaster on both sides.
Well, it's about time Bam did anything because he didn't do anything in the Atlanta series besides
That's
suck.
true. That's true.
So, but I mean, the Heat probably had half their team on the injury report. Strus was on the injury report. Martin was on the injury report. Markieff Morris. They have some mysterious respiratory virus going around. Tyler Hero is questionable.
Butler's always on there.
Butler's always on there. Lowry's, you know how I feel about him. So the Heat were the Heat is good. This always happens, especially with Jimmy Butler, which is why, for one, he's a pain in the ass. Two, he's always hurt with something. Who misses a playoff game because of a sore knee?
Joel Embiid, sometimes.
Ben Simmons.
That's for reasons aside. That is for something internal.
Sorry, that's a
by a doctor with a medical.
That's a sore butt.
Well, sore butt. If you think of sore butt, sore asses. Jimmy Butler was on the injury report this season because of his ass.
Was he really?
Yeah, it was like a tailbone ass issue.
Oh,
that does sound painful.
That does sound really bad.
Especially if Mike fell on his ass.
I'm sure he has.
Oh.
He probably was out a few weeks. All right, so moving on, I want to especially hear Dennis and Brady. We're definitely going to get your weigh in on this one. We'll say Dennis's for second.
Is that a fat joke?
It could be if you want it to be.
Interesting choice of words. Weigh in.
Yeah, I got the scale back here. No, I'm just kidding. So the Brooklyn Nets, our Brooklyn guy. What do they do now? Do they extend Kyrie? Do they trade Ben Simmons? Bruce Brown is going to need a contract, and he was a big piece of that team. And we have Dan coming in here. He said Dennis knows all about sore asses. So, Dennis, we're going to come to you about Ben Simmons. So, Brady, what do you think? Where should the Nets go from here?
All right, well, first of all, let's start with this Ben Simmons trade concept. Is like, who else besides that? There's other teams, sure, that might fall into that sort of trap, but like, who's going to be the suitor for that? Are we going to see another 3 months on ESPN of where's he going to go? TMZ Sports here today. Like, I don't want to go through another period of coverage on that. But, I mean, I certainly don't think that you move forward with your future plan saying, oh, how does Ben Simmons factor into how we become a championship? No. There's no way that you still have that legitimate feeling as a pro sports franchise and as a front office. Do you extend Kyrie? I don't know. This was a weird year for Kyrie Irving, and maybe it gets a little less weird as time moves on. I think that it's hard to say what they do now with this current roster, because what I think that they need is a serious reevaluation of how they do things as a front office. If they chose to tether their hopes to the 5 last guys they chose to tether their hopes to, they're not guys that you make they're great for racking up regular season accolades, going into the postseason with a lot of hype, getting to ESPN coverage. I'm sure they lead the league in that. Hours talked about by Stephen A. Smith on TV. I'm sure they're number one in that category. But look around. These are not guys that on their own lead you to an NBA championship. So what do? I think you take a serious look inward at yourself as a front office and think about what you actually think it takes to win a championship.
I still can't believe that somebody said that I know all about sore asses. The Nets are a mess. They have no money. Ben Simmons is a disaster. Who the hell knows if he's even going to play? Like, I'm not even confident that he's going to play next season. Kyrie's a train wreck. If you keep him on the roster, he's just going to be a pain in the ass. Kevin Durant can't be the only man who is capable of doing something, because he'll break down just like he did during the season. He wasn't really... What'd you say?
I said emotionally. He'll break down emotionally.
Right, he'll break down emotionally. Physically, I mean, he was out for a while with the knee injury. He didn't really play that well in the playoffs. Bruce Brown's going to want more money, and I don't even think the Nets can afford him. Joe Harris, who the fuck knows what he's doing these days? They don't have a good center. Andre Drummond's okay, but he's got his weaknesses. Nico Claxton is either hit or miss, depending upon the day. LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin are 50 years old. And Cam Thomas, who the fuck knows happened to him, Patty, like the whole team is just a disaster. Steve Nash is not a good coach. They're not a good team.
I mean, they seem to have gone to the school of Los Angeles Lakers how to build a team in terms of let's get all the old people and let's see what happens.
Well, I mean, they're better than the Lakers.
I mean, they are better than the Lakers, but to be fair, not by much.
Lakers have a championship to show for it as of, a couple years ago.
That was in a bubble. That don't count.
Sure, but, how much hardware are you guys hanging for the Nets? Banners, whatever they hang up there. But, I think that you shouldn't try to emulate somebody if you don't think you can do it better, and clearly they've shown that they cannot.
Right. And the thing was, yes, this year they made the play-in. They got themselves to the playoffs. But then they got there and obviously fell very flat.
All right, but they've done a better job, though, than the Lakers have. What'd the Lakers do?
This season they did, yes.
They got Russell Westbrook, who didn't play that well. No fault to his. I'm not going to blame him for that. Anthony Davis, we all know how I feel about Anthony Davis. LeBron's 90. All right, so their bench guys, Avery Bradley, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard,
Austin Reeves.
They got rid of Alex Caruso. Taylor Horton Tucker is playing like garbage. When you look at the Nets, at least they drafted.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Drafted well. They have Cam Thomas, and the moves they made were better, and the Nets would have been better had it been not for. Because the Nets won games when Kevin Durant was playing.
True.
You can't really say that for the Lakers, even when Anthony Davis was in the lineup. So I still think the Nets are a far better team.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I definitely think they're a better team as well. But to say that, the Lakers are that much worse, I don't think, especially if you look at in terms of their finish. They didn't finish that much better than the Lakers did in terms of the Nets. But either way, I agree with this whole trade Ben Simmons thing. I mean, if you're going to trade him, you're not getting much for him. You're probably going to get maybe a pick and an okay player, like a young player that might have a little bit of potential, but you don't really know because no team, especially now with the whole thing of all these reports saying, oh, the Brooklyn Nets wanted him to at least try to play, and he wouldn't even do that, and he didn't even show up to the last game, and somebody saw his thing on Discord where he was playing Call of Duty for 23 hours straight. No wonder you got a sore back if you're sitting there playing Call of Duty for almost 24 hours in a row.
That's why my back's been bothering me.
I'm sorry, did we not know who this guy was back after his first year at LSU? Was there not fair and ample warning to exactly the kind of player that Ben Simmons was going to be when he decides to not go play in the NIT and the rest of the LSU roster and coach follows suit, despite the fact that there's an entire other team behind him that could have gotten postseason experience? Do we not know exactly who this guy was? Whoever took a chance on him past that is your problem.
I mean, then he also gave up on the Australian Olympic team.
Who wouldn't?
When Patty Mills and all of them were behind him and supporting him. And then goes to Brooklyn, gets out of Philly like he wanted to, still can't even get on the court. And now it's my back, my poor back.
But he attributed that to mental health concerns. So who are you to question him?
I'm going to question him.
I would also say that for mental health concerns, I would also recommend against playing Call of Duty for 23 hours straight one day. This is a tinker up there.
Having kids call you all sorts of racial slurs and curse words for 23 hours straight, I don't think that's great for your mental health either.
Not great for self-esteem, from what I've heard, but he shouldn't probably go on the internet if he's got self-esteem concerns.
That's why I stopped playing. They were calling me fat all the time.
But if I'm the Nets...
I got called fat by an 8-year-old. Crushed me. I had to get off of that thing.
If I'm the Nets, I don't want to extend Kyrie.
I have to, though.
I know you kind of have to, but I don't want to. Just like if I'm the Sixers, I don't want to extend James Harden. Unless Harden's going to be like, I'll take $10 million a year. I'd be like, all right, cool, we'll do that. But anything outside of that, especially like what happens, God forbid, if something else happens with COVID again, what happens if, you know, there's a shooting star on the third Tuesday of the third month, which means Kyrie can't play basketball anymore because the sky is telling him that he can't do it. Like, then what?
He's a spiritual guy.
You're questioning somebody's... Take him right off the flat side of the earth.
You're questioning somebody's mental health. You're questioning somebody's faith. You know, that's shame on you.
I'm questioning the same things you questioned earlier this year.
No, but the thing is, Kyrie's going to get more money by staying in Brooklyn. He's not going to, you know, that's his incentive. I mean, if you're the Nets, you kind of have no choice but to kind of risk it because you're not going to get, by letting him walk, you're certainly going to set yourself back. So, and I don't think KD is going to want him going anywhere. And I think Ben Simmons, you're not going to get anything for him either, which is the problem that Philly had, which is why they literally had to give up Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, draft picks, Ben Simmons for James Harden and Paul Millsap. That was the deal. In order to get rid of Ben Simmons, because they had no leverage whatsoever. They were trying to get as much as they could, and all they got was a washed-up 50% James Harden.
I will continuously just be pissed off they didn't do the trade for Halliburton.
I just got that one.
Yep. As soon as I heard Halliburton's name mentioned, I'm like, do it. And then James Harden and Paul Millsap.
Do you hear how insane this is? What we're saying is that their only course of action, it seems like, is to keep things exactly as is. That's the situation they've gotten themselves into. It's like, it's so funny to watch this happen, you know, and it's like a car wreck when you see it coming in slow motion. It's like, I loved it, you know, all this analysis and talk that we see on TV and what we're doing now. It almost seems so unnecessary because it's like, don't we all know where this is headed? And it's headed right here, which is, I guess their only hope is to keep things as is and hope that their 3 stars turn into completely different people overnight by the time the next season starts. That's the best hope. That's the NBA right now, man.
That's just kind of depressing.
And the net, in all fairness, had the Nets, had Kyrie been able to play, I think the Nets could have gelled a little bit better. They would have gotten on the Nets are infamous for going on long winning streaks. So I think the COVID and everything's been fucking everybody up in terms of player availability and things like that. So it even helped the Lakers win a championship because when you get 4 months off and you can rest, you know, a 35-year-old LeBron or whatever he was at that time, sure. So, you know, fuck COVID, I guess. But, you know, I think if the Nets come back next year and they make some tweaks and stuff, I think they're going to be okay.
I mean, define okay.
I mean, I've given up championship aspirations, but you never know. I mean, if Ben Simmons can come back and just play defense and, you know, KD can stay healthy and Kyrie can stop being an idiot, then I think we're okay.
Okay.
That's a big parlay there, Dennis.
I'll take your word for it. All right. One of the other, I guess the Boston Celtics and the Bucks, we can talk about them later on if we really want to. But the one thing I'm curious about are the Pascal Siakam trade rumors. My question is, why would Toronto want to trade Pascal Siakam? Especially with the fact that he was a big part of the reason why the Raptors could compete in that series against the Sixers. And one of the biggest reasons that they had some success was their big lineup. And they actually forced the Sixers into some really bad situations defensively. And so now they're just going to turn around and be like, Siakam's not going to help us win past this.
Well, here's the thing, too, that's interesting now is, you got Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell not getting along as usual.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a surprise. I mean, we could see that coming. I mean, that's been going on for years.
When that start?
So we have, those two guys not getting along. Now we got, I could see something like that maybe happening, a Rudy Gobert pet. But the Toronto Raptors don't need to do that.
Mm-mm.
The Raptors would be completely fine. When you think Scotty Barnes was already NBA ready in his first year. Imagine how good he's going to be in year 2. I think he's going to be 10 times better in year 2. Hopefully he doesn't get that sophomore slump and go back. But I don't see that happening. I just think he's too good. If the Raptors add a couple more pieces, maybe they get some bench help, some guys who can actually help them so they don't have to run their starting lineup, 35, 40 minutes per game, because that's where if OG Anunoby could stay healthy, if Fred VanVleet could stay healthy, the Raptors are the real deal.
I mean, their biggest needs are a center and bench guards. Because after VanVleet and OG Anunoby, you don't really have any guards. I mean, you have Malachi Flynn and
so as
Delano
you were saying, they don't have any guards.
Yeah. So, they have these young guys that just aren't turning out to be anything. But they did have Goran Dragic, and then Dragic was like, I want a better team with championship aspirations, got his ass swept out of the first round, and then back to reality.
The way Dragic was playing, though, with the Nets, he could have been not a huge difference maker, but he could have added some value to the Raptors.
Agreed. But the things that they need can be found either in free agency or minor trades. Not a major trade involving Pascal Siakam.
I think they could do it cheaper than that. I think that this is an organization that has proven on enough instances that they can find guys in the second round to those UDFA signings that I don't think that why take a chance on moving a guy like Pascal Siakam to where, at least for the supposed trade packages that they would get in return to a place like Portland, let's say, I don't think are all that enticing unless you really think you see far enough ahead to make something of those picks. I think that they can trust their organizational competence and, move forward with the pieces that they have, considering that they were, light years ahead of where I thought they would be this year. So, I think that to move Pascal would be to show actually a little less faith in, your front office and in your organizational way of thinking. I think that what they have right now, I think that they can address their needs in a much more economically efficient way than trading Pascal Siakam and having to, take a percentage off of a premium for, the projections that you're making for the draft or guys you might get in return that might be throwaway pieces because you just want the picks.
Yep.
But what he said.
The way that Precious played in this postseason made Kem Birch disposable. So
Precious. Precious that was another guy. Those Memphis guys, man. You get those Memphis forwards, and
yep.
that guy just just does a few things really, really well. And it eliminates the need to go out and get all these really, these 5-tool guys, for baseball terminology, to get a guy like Precious that can go out and do a few things really well. It's what the dude Freddie Gillespie really could be for another team if he just found the right opportunity, honestly.
Right. Nah, I completely agree. And that makes, some of the guys they have, there could be a rebuilding team that might want to give Malachi Flynn a shot. Why not send him somewhere and see what you could get for him? Or Delano Banton, showed some promise in the G League, so maybe either give him some more minutes or trade him and see what you can get for him to like Oklahoma City, because obviously they're just never trying to compete again ever. So they're definitely, I agree, there's definitely way more economic deals and signings they could make than to trade Siakam. So,
imagine if Bruce Brown went to Toronto.
That would be perfect.
He would be perfect for that.
There's an idea.
They would wreck Brooklyn every time.
Well, I am a Raptors fan now, so I'm okay with that.
That's true. All right, so let's move to the West. We'll move to Utah because we brought them up, and then we'll get to Memphis. So we brought up the whole Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell thing. I feel like the obvious answer is they should trade Rudy Gobert. At least in my head, that's the obvious answer.
No way, because what's going to happen is they're going to trade Rudy Gobert. Donovan Mitchell's going to be happy for 3 months, and then all this bullshit again is going to start up about Donovan Mitchell wanting to go to the Knicks.
Yeah, but if you trade Rudy, I'm also saying not just Rudy Gobert. You trade Rudy Gobert, you trade Jordan Clarkson, you cut, trade, ship away, throw off the bridge Mike Conley. All of these guys, except maybe Bogdanovich, just get out of there. Because none of them are helping you win a championship. So if you're trading Rudy, you're also trading a bunch of these other guys to actually get some people around Donovan Mitchell.
Well, here's what you need to do then. I think you should just trade everybody.
You could do that too.
Because Donovan Mitchell is not going to steal. He's not going to last his contract in Utah.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell could win a championship as the number one option.
I think that's the biggest problem, is that for guys of his talent level and his skill set, what they bring to the floor, he is never going to beat the top 0.001% of the NBA from that range of, guys 2 to 4, which there's almost no distinction between those positions now in the NBA. I think that Donovan Mitchell, we see some sort of future where maybe him and Zion pair up in New York. I think that's been, where the Lynx have been headed for a few years. Whatever on that for now. I think the weird thing about Gobert is we see this with a lot of centers. We kind of saw it with Hassan Whiteside, and we're not really talking the same level of skill and talent in Gobert and some of these guys. But Gobert is like 1 year away from being like a minimum deal guy. We see this with certain guys that, the shot blockers and the rebound. What we saw with Rudy Gobert and the Jazz this postseason was a severe limitation of that team just from having him on the floor. One of their greatest assets was a reason why they were never going to win that series. And that's obviously a huge problem. And a lot of teams took note of that. It was a huge discussion point during that series. I think you can get something for Rudy Gobert, but I think that there's a very limited window when you can cash in on that to make it worth it. Because as I said, I think he's about a year or two away from being, he's now with the Nuggets on a 10-day contract. Now he's with the Rockets on a 10-day. And that's crazy to think for, what he does on the floor. But you see what, the way that he limits his team when it matters the most.
I think it's a little bit of the 10-day contract thing's a little bit.
It's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Thank
sure,
you.
There was 2 guys, Dennis, that I told you before that will get game planned off the floor in the playoffs. Andre Drummond and Rudy Gobert.
And look where Andre Drummond's at.
And look where Rudy Gobert's at.
Well, like I said, they need to just get rid of the whole team.
I mean, yeah.
I
Probably.
mean, you got people from the Knicks coming to watch Donovan Mitchell play basketball. I mean,
I don't know if that says more about the Knicks or the Jazz.
That's where the next scouting department is in Utah. I mean, the straight up question, should they trade Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell? If I'm given only those two choices, I say trade Rudy Gobert. I think that, but I think if you're going to, keep Donovan Mitchell, there has to be some sort of plan in place to get another guy of his caliber or higher to pair up with him in a way that doesn't limit him as much as Rudy Gobert. And I think their possibilities for that are extremely limited.
I think it's time to hit the reset button and time to build around Trent Forrest.
Where's Mia One? I loved when he was with Utah, getting those 3 minutes every few days. Where's he at now? I love that guy.
I wish I got 3 minutes every few days.
Any Ivy Leaguer that goes to the NBA, I pay attention to.
What was the one that Utah had right before him? Oni?
That's who I thought that I said. Maybe saying Mia One was it doesn't come across very clear, but that's what I meant at least.
Oh, okay. The main thing is the big thing is Donovan Mitchell is going to give you the bigger return in terms of a trade, because with Rudy Gobert, everyone knows what he does and he does it well, and to me. Rudy
Give everybody
Gobert,
COVID.
I mean, he did do that very well.
He's the reason the Lakers won a championship.
He should have been signed to the Lakers the whole time.
I will remember the day that you hear the Jazz have gotten that game is delayed. The Jazz are in quarantine in the locker room. Is like, I think the world's going to be a little different now.
I think they were playing the Mavericks.
I think they were too. Yeah. Speaking of the Mavericks, I think it was them who played the Jazz in the first round again. It was the Mavericks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was the post game press conference where the Mavs were saying like, "Oh yeah, we can't really attack the basket as much. Like we're not playing against Whiteside and Gobert anymore." Which is like, that's supposed to be what they're the best at. Both of them is guarding the rim and defense in general. And this is the other team who just played you saying, "Oh, we can't attack this other team because they're not as bad as Gobert and Whiteside were."
Yeah, like they actually have. They say like something like they actually have guys who could score underneath or so, like something along those lines.
Yeah, and he compared them to Ayton and JaVale McGee.
Shaq and a fool.
Like if they're referencing the fact that that JaVale McGee is more of a threat, that's terrible.
I mean, it just shows that there's a very clear difference with a lot of guys between your shot blocking numbers and how disruptive you are to, the internal scoring. I'd have to look at a little deeper into the numbers on guys like Gobert and Whiteside to actually speak to that. But, clearly that's the way teams are feeling. That's the way teams are playing, and they've had success with it. So it's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a great 12 minutes, Hassan Whiteside is your guy.
Sometimes that's all you need, but the Jazz needed a little.
I need less than that, pal.
Something about like the motion of the ocean, or Tyler asked if Mitchell is overrated.
Yes.
I hate the overrated or not. I don't hate the overrated question. I hate the overrated answers. Because like it depends who's rating them. If someone is speaking like they think Donovan Mitchell can lead a team as the best player on a team to a championship, it's like I call it Paul Millsap syndrome. For years, Paul Millsap was the most underrated guy in the NBA. So he wasn't underrated anymore. We talked about him all the time. It depends what you consider to be rating. And, I think there's a very easy way to look at Donovan Mitchell objectively and see exactly what he's capable of and exactly who he's for. But Are the Jazz maybe a little foolhardy in thinking that he's the guy moving forward? If that is the plan, then I do think so.
Yeah. No, I agree, because everyone's looking at Donovan Mitchell as he should be the number one guy on a championship team, and like we just said, I don't think he is for a championship team. I think he would be the perfect two-man. He'd be the perfect sidekick, but I don't think he would be the number one guy.
I think he's better than a 2, but he's more like a 1.25.
I'll give you that.
He's not like good enough to be like, but he's good, like really good.
Like him alongside like Jason Tatum.
Right.
Have Jason Tatum as the number one guy.
Right.
Like that would be really, really good. I'm not saying like he's better or worse than Jaylen Brown, but that's just the first person that came to mind. But Golden State and Memphis. Golden State's new death lineup that everyone's been coining it now with Jordan Poole and everything has been pretty great. Draymond Green got himself ejected and like paraded around the court after that. I'm surprised the NBA didn't do anything about that.
That was a horrible ejection, though. I've seen people get fouled way harder than that, and they didn't even get a flagrant. So
I agree.
Sure, he gets called differently because of who he is. You know, people expect it more. It's a lot like what happens to DeMarcus Cousins too, at least on some occasions. You know, it's when you expect something from someone, what you see feeds into your expectations of them, and it makes you act differently than you would for others. And so, yeah, but also you gotta love Draymond's reaction because he's always just vintage him. You gotta love that. You gotta love the authenticity.
Oh yeah. And then he went and recorded a podcast after that. That was my favorite part about that whole thing. And then he showed the video of Luka getting kicked in the nuts, and he just put like laughing emojis because nobody was ejected or anything for that, but he was suspended obviously with that whole thing with LeBron and against Cleveland.
But when you're a pain in the ass throughout your career, that's like Brady said. That's what happens. You get called differently because you're a pain in the ass.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's like look at the if Draymond was actually playing and didn't get suspended for the one game in the series with Cleveland would have never beat them.
No, not at all. That whole thing would have been completely different. So, Brady, in your mind, do you think Memphis is going to pull this one out? Will Ja Morant continue to be the hero that he has been? Or is Golden State just a little too tough to get over this first playoff run for this Memphis core?
First of all, I think Ja Morant will continue to be a hero regardless. I think that whatever Ja Morant does, the legend of him has been, steadily building, deservedly so. He's really taken a lot of, he's captured the imaginations of people. That dunk that he had, there is nobody that puts people on a poster like Ja Morant at a Murray State, Kentucky, second point guard in the NBA playoffs right now at a Murray State. Gotta love that. But I think that, most likely outcome of this series is probably Golden State in 7. I think then you go Golden State in 6, and then I think you go Memphis in 7. I think those are the 3 most likely outcomes. I think too much of Memphis's success is going to depend on the continued heroic performances on a lot of their bit players like Brandon Clark. I love what Tyus Jones does in his minutes on the floor. Guys like DeAnthony Melton, Desmond Bane has been out of this world efficient, not only this season, but since he's come into the NBA.
He's a much different player this season than he was last year.
Sure. I just mean his shooting efficiency. He's been like a 46% three-point shooter since he came into the NBA. And that was, pretty
disgusting.
He's been sick. And he was either a late first round or an early second round. I think it was late first round, and then they got Xavier Tillman early in the second. But that's another guy too. I think that Golden State has way too many pieces that you just know are going to deliver night in and night out. I think Taylor Jenkins and Memphis are still putting together, and there's still a lot of different things for the roster that little idiosyncrasies that are going to come together over the next year or two. I think that Golden State is going to be a really about as any other matchup. I think I would give Memphis a lot more of a chance, but Golden State with the pieces that they have that have done this year in and year out, the real core of those championship teams, and now they're making innovative adjustments in their lineup that are helping to evolve. They end up stealing that game by a point in game one. I think it's going to be really hard for Memphis to overcome that. But the legend of Ja Morant continues to grow. And the way we look, I said this a couple years about, I either said this at the beginning of last year or a little earlier. I said it's possible that we will look back at Ja, Jaren, and Desmond Bane for the Grizzlies, similar to how we look back at Russ, KD, and James Harden with the Thunder when they were all there. There's obviously some differences there. There's some room for argument, but I think in terms of the talent that we did not realize until they're gone that was together, I think that this is as strong as a young core gets as we have in Memphis right now.
I saw you raise your eyebrow, Dennis.
I can't follow that. Fuck am I gonna say?
That.
I mean that was beautiful. I can't,
No, I mean I definitely agree that
Steven Adams. Woo!
Don't throw my man Steven Adams under the bus.
He's not. I mean, Valanciunas was playing. Where's Steven Adams been?
Don't you do it.
Steven Adams, he's got Mr. Protocol's not even playing right now. Jonas Valanciunas is so much of a man. You see that hair he had? He had better hair than I do. He's too much of a man for protocols. Jonas Valanciunas would have been out there. No, but honestly, the Grizzlies are better off without him playing because Brandon Clark's playing out of his fucking mind.
Clark has been amazing.
He was huge in the first round. So, that's perfect what they got going on right now.
And Clark was a guy they were really thinking about moving past, depending on the results of this year. And now, this changes things completely. I mean, Brandon Clark, his efficiency, the range of what he has demonstrated he's able to do in the court, not so much to the entirety of this season, but really when things got to their highest stakes. I think he's really come through. And what Memphis has shown again is that they're really good at selecting bench and role players through a variety of different means. As I said, I'm a big Tyus Jones guy ever since he's been in Memphis. I love what he does off the bench. I love what John Conchar is capable of. And I think that there's a few guys, even at the G League level, that I wish they would have utilized a little more this season that didn't get that opportunity, but I think would have been real assets down the stretch here.
I did go on record and say Tyus Jones is the best backup point guard in the league.
I depending on how you define backup point guard and across different situations, I would agree. Traditional backup point guard, I think that's an objective analysis. I would definitely agree with that.
All right, let's not fucking overcomplicate this. What I'm saying is, Ja Morant's hurt, which happens a lot.
I mean, with that kind of explosive athleticism, that you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, anyways, Ja Morant gets hurt, and it's always like he's out. They say he's going to be out 7 weeks with a knee injury. He's back in 4. So he's hurt. Tyus Jones is a guy, if they didn't have Tyus Jones, they could continue to play well without Ja Morant because they had Tyus Jones, who played well. Whenever he starts, he plays well.
And from a basketball love when Tyus Jones is getting crazy. I'm talking standard.
Okay, I'm sorry, honey.
The only guy I haven't really heard much from this season, even though a lot of people in Memphis have been making some noise, is Kyle Anderson. He's always quiet,
Yeah. He kind of he's got that kid and play haircut, and so it seems like something out of a time capsule. But I actually got to see him play back at Pauley Pavilion, when he was still at UCLA with Shabazz Muhammad and whatnot, and. He's got his shot's ugly, but there's not a statistical category that he can't produce if in the right role and in the right lineup. But he's never gonna like blow anybody away, but he's a guy that you like to have on the floor because he can contribute in every single way possible. Just less efficiently in the offensive department.
Right.
Well, he's a guy who showed upside in San Antonio, played well enough to get a good contract, moved to Memphis, and now he's doesn't have to do anything.
He's like epitome Pop. Like that's a Popovich player right there.
Yeah. Pop probably was crying when he left.
Oh yeah. Pop's like, damn it, now I have to do Lonnie Walker.
I gotta find another Kyle Anderson.
But no, Memphis has been amazing to just watch in general, especially as somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game. Like, just watching them play basketball is fun. And I'm glad Jaren Jackson finally is staying on the healthier side of things, because his potential was always there. It was always talked about. It was always like, these are the things he can do. If he just stays healthy, he could be that center that they desperately need.
It's been one season.
I know. It hasn't been an extended period of time, but it's promising.
Yeah, the difference is now it's no longer what could be. We've seen what he is able to do with this time. And so now it's not this thing out there in the ether. Now this is what he can, now we just needed to continue, So it's just always good to see someone turn that corner, actually play, and actually produce those results that in your wildest dreams you would have hoped at the maximum they can do.
Right.
Honestly, though, like he had a couple rough games, and thankfully they had Brandon Clark playing. I'm a Brandon Clark guy.
I saw you transforming mid-episode.
Isn't it fantastic to see that the teams that are stealing the attention in this NBA postseason are the front offices that are doing things right and have assembled these exciting young teams with the right pieces in place? It's not just the money that is winning, because that's what we hear all the time. And I remember back in the day, when it was Steve Nash, Kobe, and Dwight Howard on the same Lakers team, and all those memes were coming out like, well, I guess we'll see the Lakers in the finals. And it's like, why do we do that every year? It never works out like that, ever. But finally, all the most exciting teams in this year's playoffs have been the teams whose front offices have gotten it together and made fantastic moves. And, if their roster isn't exactly where it's supposed to be this year, it's headed perfectly in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that for these super teams never work. I completely 100% agree.
Yeah. Especially the whole formula of get the super teams, sign all the veterans, chasing rings. That's worked maybe once or twice in the last 20 years.
Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it takes different forms, as time goes on, teams have more money and different, veterans adapt their wants and needs. I mean, we've seen NBA teams with a bunch of ring chasing veterans before that, arguably had better pieces in place before then. But I mean, it's such a broken record at this point. It's such an overplayed narrative. And, it's why it's really hard to feel bad for any teams or fan bases that, find themselves in this situation. What did you think was going to happen? How can you blame Russell Westbrook for whatever's going on in LA, man? And that was what was on TV all day, every day on ESPN. Is Russ to blame? No, the Lakers are to blame, man, because they paired Russell Westbrook up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So he's a Kentucky guy. I love the brow, but he's not a guy that you want to pay that amount of money for, and he's not going to be on the floor. Street clothes, as Charles Barkley refers to him as. It's a shame that I have to refer to him that way, but he has been a liability. He's just costing you money at this point, unless you're making your money back in jersey sales.
Street clothes is also Dennis's favorite phrase.
You said rim chasers?
Ring chasers.
Ring chasers.
Oh. You say a bunch of guys who like rimming.
What are you thinking over there? Jeez.
I was like, rim. They got my nickname from high school. The rim chaser.
Oh, God. But no, I agree. The whole thing's overplayed at this point in the game. It's just you have to have those either young or those like go-getter role players that are going to play that role but play it to the fullest extent. Like at least when, Golden State had like David West, everyone was looking at him as a ring chaser, but David West was playing his ass off. Like he was diving after loose balls. He was doing this and that. He wasn't just like, trying to be the prime David West and take over games or anything. He knew where he was in his stage of his career. So that's the kind of guys you need. You don't need like, LaMarcus Aldridge thinking he's, God's gift to basketball still and taking every single mid-range shot when you have the rest of the team there. You don't need DeAndre Jordan thinking he's, still in Lob City when he can't even get off the ground anymore. There's so many things that go into the formula now that you can't just...
The Sean Livingstons, the Iguodalas,
exactly.
Those guys where they add something completely different that you cannot measure in a statistical category. That young players with all the skills and talent in the world probably just can't produce unless you've been in the NBA that amount of years and you've been in those situations before and you're battle tested enough.
Exactly.
I will say it's only been, to change the subject a little bit, we're only through one half in Boston. Jaylen Brown through one half has 25 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block through one half.
Damn.
Celtics are up by
the Bucks right now.
The Celtics are up by 25.
Jeez.
65-40.
Good Lord. Well, so the last topic of the night was going to be, do the Boston Celtics have a chance against the Bucks to win the series?
I think we answered that question.
I think that's, they got a pretty good chance.
I mean, it's hard to quantify exactly what has changed other than Brad Stevens is now, in a front office role, but it seems to have made, such a huge difference. Marcus Smart, arguably coming off the best year of his career. Robert Williams, the whole makeup of that team, you gotta love it as, just a basketball. What, Dennis?
Let's not get rock hard for one fucking game, all right? They got to win 4 games.
It's the season, Dennis. It's that before any other Celtics team that came into the playoffs these years before, they were an exciting team because of their lead too, but they weren't a real threat to make it past the Eastern Conference Finals, and that was not a given. This team, based on what they're doing, the fact that they can even, start off with a 1-0 lead potentially against the Bucks is galaxies from where I think they were in previous seasons.
I mean, do you remember the first part of the season? What a shit show it was.
Wasn't great. I'll give you that.
No, and then they beat a bunch of crappy teams to advance in the Eastern Conference. They got to win. They got to win 4 games against Giannis. Not going to happen.
Yeah, but there's no Middleton. Which does make a difference, especially offensively.
It didn't in game 1.
No, but it is right now so far.
And we still have another half of basketball left.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, Middleton was always good for 2 to 3 games of like 30 points.
Yeah, but this isn't the Bucks team. They have Drew Holiday now.
They had Drew Holiday last year.
This is playing well. Well,
he was playing well last year.
What? Hold on. Quit jumping all over me. I'm saying this isn't the Bucks from years ago when it was like Giannis and Chris Middleton. Right. They added Drew Holiday for that reason. Bobby Portis is playing well. Brook Lopez is back. Grayson Allen, Connaughton. They got guys who can score and do just enough. The Celtics aren't that deep. They aren't. They might win a game or two, but they're not going to be. They can't beat the Bucks in 4 games. They can't win 4 games against the Bucks.
I mean,
ain't happening.
I think they can. Do I think they will? No, but I think they can.
I think, again, in this regard, I think the most likely 3 scenarios is Milwaukee in 7, then Boston in 7, then Milwaukee in 6. I think those are the 3 most likely outcomes for this series.
I mean, you're really going on a limb naming 3. Why don't you just throw 5 out there? I say There's 7 likely scenarios that can happen in all this. The Celtics in 5, the Bucks in 5.
Yeah, but I don't think those are going to happen. That's why I went with 3, and that's why I did the tier system with my hand here.
You're smarter than I am. I just have to pick on you to make myself feel better.
But I think that
leave the hair like you had it. That was great.
I know, real high. I wasn't expecting that.
Middleton being out is definitely an impact. And then the big thing about the Celtics is I just wish they had a good distributing, playmaking, floor general. Marcus Smart is good. I like Marcus Smart. What he brings to the table is something that every team wants. But if they just had a point, prime Rondo would have been amazing with this team.
I don't know how he would have handled all these young players taking that limelight in the locker room, though. Not Rondo again, Kentucky. That's a guy that anytime that you bring him in, it's well, he wasn't getting along very well with other people in the locker room. It's well, there was no sample size to tell you that was going to happen, right?
Exactly. I just mean that play style, though.
Yeah.
If they had a point guard like that, then I'd be yeah, Boston to the finals.
Yeah, I agree. That is a clear hole in their roster, and they are limited in some capacities. But if the question scrolling at the bottom of the screen there is, do the Boston Celtics have a chance against the Bucks? Yeah, I'll even say I think Boston wins this series, Dennis. This is how I do things on Tap That, as you know. I think Boston wins this series 35 to 40% of the time. 35 to 40 out of 100 series is how many times Boston takes it.
Yes. They put the patented Brady percentage. I love it. I love it.
That's how percentages work, is out of 100 usually, So I can't claim I invented that, but I do make frequent use of it.
Well, I took math 3 times, so I.
Which one?
2nd grade.
Oh, God. On that note, that's all the topics we have for tonight. So unless you guys want to get anything off of your chest, I think that's it for us.
I think I got it all off in the opportunity allotted.
Sweet. So Brady, if you want to plug anything, the podcast, social media, what you got?
So again, you can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady, ROTOBRADY, and I host the Tap That podcast for Rotoballer, doing MMA, DFS, and sports betting picks for the UFC, Bellator, and whatnot for Rotoballer.com. So check that out. We have a lot of special guests and stuff that come on the show. It's a lot of fun.
Sweet. And we'll have a bunch of those links down in the description for YouTube and in the description everywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all that as well. Make sure you follow Brady and check out his podcast. But that is it for us. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to another episode of the Atlantic Files, the #1 podcast on the #1 division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. And we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.